You ever seen a man's whole life change in one traffic stop? This story isn't just about justice, it's about what happens when judgment gets there first. So, before we begin, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because stories like this one, the kind that shake you, that make you think, they're the kind we tell right here every week. This is one you won't forget. The morning started quiet. The kind of quiet that hums before chaos. Officer Daniel Harkins leaned against his patrol car, sipping lukewarm coffee on the edge of Elmwood Park, his eyes scanning the empty path. He'd been on the force for 15 years, long enough to think he'd seen it all, long enough to build habits he didn't question anymore. Some called him old school, others, off the record, called him something darker. Daniel didn't care. Either way, he thought he knew right from wrong. Good guys from bad. But that morning, his compass was about to spin wild. A black Mercedes rolled up, slowed through the park road, polished, silent, tinted, just enough to keep curiosity alive. The driver, a black man, well-dressed, pulled into a spot near the walking trail. Daniel noticed immediately. The man's suit looked expensive. His demeanor was poised, not hurried, not scared. That alone, for Daniel, was suspicious. He told himself he was just doing his job. But deep down, he wasn't. He was following a bias that had been carved into him one stop at a time. He got into his cruiser, lights off, and followed the car at a crawl until it stopped near a bench by the lake. The driver stepped out tall, athletic build, early 40s maybe, crisped navy suit, silver tie, a badge chain barely visible as it dipped inside his shirt. He stretched, looked around, then sat with a leather briefcase beside him, flipping open a small book. To anyone else, it looked peaceful. To Daniel, it looked wrong. He saw something that wasn't a threat where there was none. He radioed dispatched. Car 24 got a suspicious male in Elmwood Park. Dark suit, sitting near the East Trail bench, possibly casing vehicles. Copy. Car 24? Came the dispatcher's voice. Any additional info? Black male, mid-40s alone. Gonna check it out? He didn't mention that the man was doing nothing illegal. That part didn't feel important to Daniel. He stepped out of his cruiser, hand resting on his holster out of habit, walking toward the man like a predator circling calm prey. Morning, he called out. The man looked up with a polite nod, closed his book. Morning, officer, he said evenly. His voice was steady, warm even. Beautiful day, isn't it? Could be, Daniel said. Mind telling me what you're doing here? The man blinked, confused. Just reading. Is there a problem? Depends. You live around here? Not exactly, the man replied, straightening a little. I'm in town for work. Daniel's eyes flicked to the briefcase. Work? Huh? What kind of work? The man paused. Federal work. That word hit Daniel like static. He heard federa, and his brain jumped to undercover, cartel, or worse. He couldn't imagine a federal agent who looked like this man sitting calmly in his park. Federal, Daniel repeated, tone sharpening. You got ID on you? Of course, the man said, reaching slowly into his jacket pocket. But Daniel's pulse spiked. Hand movements? He didn't like them. His training, his fear, and his prejudice all shouted at once. Keep your hands where I can see them! The man froze, hands raised halfway. All right, officer, I'm complying. Step away from the briefcase! Sir, I think there's a misunderstanding, he said carefully, stepping back, palms open. I'm Agent Michael Cole. I work with the Bureau. Daniel snorted. The Bureau? You mean the FBI? Yes, Michael said, trying to maintain calm. My credentials are in my jacket pocket, left side. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. The park was too quiet, his mind too loud. He radioed again, voice tense. Dispatch, car 24, need backup at Elmwood Park. Possible suspect, claiming to be federal agent. Michael's jaw tightened. Claiming. Officer, if you let me show my shut it. Daniel barked, pulling his weapon halfway from the holster. Hands on your head! Now! Michael sighed. Slow. Careful. You're making a mistake? Maybe, Daniel said, cuffing him roughly, but I'll let someone else figure that out. As the cold steel locked around Michael's wrists, something in his expression shifted not fear, but disappointment, like he'd seen this scene before too many times, and had hoped this time would be different. When backup arrived, two younger officers jogged up. What's going on, Harkins? One asked. Guy claims he's FBI, Daniel said, scoffing. Probably forged credentials, had this fancy briefcase, acting suspicious. Michael spoke calmly. If you open that briefcase, you'll find my ID, my service weapon, and a classified case file. I was waiting for a contact. Yeah, sure, Daniel said. And I'm the president. The younger officers exchanged uncertain looks. One of them crouched, opened the briefcase. Inside, a federal badge, Glock 19, sealed manila folder, and a letter with FBI. Don? The younger cop murmured. This looks real. Daniel frowned. Fake! They sell this stuff online. The officer held up the ID. It's got holographic seal. Serial number. This is legit. Michael turned his head, eyes locked on Daniel. You can call the field office in D.C. The number's right there. Ask for Deputy Director Simmons. Daniel's throat went dry. He hesitated, then grabbed the radio again. Dispatch! Run a name for me, Michael Cole. Badge 47-1083. Silence for a moment, then static. Copy that. Stand by. The seconds stretched. The park felt too bright, too open. Daniel's stomach twisted, a feeling creeping in he hadn't felt in years doubt. Then dispatch came back, Carvinci Quattro. Confirm that name again. Michael Cole, badge 47-1083. Another pause. Then 10-4, car 24. That's confirmed. Active Special Agent Michael Cole, FBI Counterintelligence Division. The world tilted. The younger officers froze. Daniel's grip on the handcuffs slipped. Michael stood silent, watching him come, controlled, dangerous in his stillness. Would you mind uncuffing me now, Officer Harkins? He asked. Daniel's fingers trembled as he fumbled with the key. Sir, Michael raised a hand. Don't! The cuffs clicked open. Michael rubbed his wrists, not taking his eyes off Daniel. You called me a suspect. You pulled your weapon. You made assumptions? His tone was low level. Now tell me, what exactly did I do wrong? Daniel opened his mouth, then shut it. I was just following procedure. No, Michael said quietly. You were following prejudice. The air went dead. Even the birds seemed to have stopped. The younger officers shifted awkwardly. Michael looked at them, then back at Daniel. Do me a favor. Don't touch that briefcase again, and don't talk to anyone about what you think you saw. He picked up the case, straightened his jacket, and started to walk away. Wait, Daniel called after him. You're not going to file a complaint? Michael stopped, looked back. Oh, I already did. Daniel blinked. What? Michael's lips curved into the faintest, coldest smile. Before I came here, this was an assessment. What assessment? For you. Daniel froze. What are you talking about? Michael took a slow step closer, eyes hard. You were under review, Officer Harkins. The Bureau has been monitoring racial bias incidents tied to your precinct. I was the evaluator. Daniel's chest tightened. You're lying! Michael's voice stayed calm, almost sympathetic. No, I'm not. He handed Daniel a folded paper official letterhead, FBI seal, and his name typed clean across it. Internal cooperation between federal and local enforcement. You were flagged. Daniel's hands shook as he read it. It was real. Every word. Michael leaned in, voice dropping to a near whisper. You just failed your own test. And then he walked away, leaving Daniel standing in the middle of the park, surrounded by his silence, his backup, and the weight of what he'd just done. But that was only the beginning, because in the days that followed, everything Daniel thought he knew about power, race, and justice was about to unravel one truth at a time. The morning after the incident, Daniel woke to the sound of his phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. He groaned, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. For a moment, he thought it might be routine dispatch chatter, or his partner reminding him of roll call. But when he saw the caller Captain Reynolds, his stomach sank. The captain didn't call before sunrise unless something was seriously wrong. He hesitated before answering. Yeah, Cap, get your ass down to the station! Harkins, Reynolds snapped. His voice was tight, controlled, but Daniel could hear the tension underneath. We need to talk. Now, what's going on? FBI's here, Reynolds said. And they're not smiling. Daniel sat up, heart hammering. FBI. Yeah, some guy named Simmons says it's about an incident in Elmwood Park. You got 5 minutes? The line went dead. Daniel's mind raced. He swung his legs off the bed, pulling on his uniform with shaking hands. He replayed the entire encounter, in his head though a rest. The ID, the confirmation, over the radio, that cold-looked Michael Cole had given him before leaving. He thought about the way the younger officers had looked at him, the silent disapproval in their eyes. By the time he arrived at the precinct, there were 2 black SUVs parked out front, the kind that didn't belong to local law enforcement. Inside, the entire station felt tense, quieter than usual. Conversations stopped as he walked in. He felt eyes on him, judgmental, curious, afraid. Captain's office, his partner muttered. Reynolds was standing by his desk when Daniel entered, his jaw tight, a vein pulsing in his temple. Across from him sat Deputy Director Thomas Simmons, a tall man in a charcoal suit with sharp eyes and a colder smile. Michael Cole wasn't there. Daniel's pulse quickened. Officer Harkins, Simmons said, voice calm but firm. Have a seat. Daniel sat stiffly. Do you know why we're here? Simmons asked. Daniel swallowed. I assume this is about the incident yesterday. Simmons nodded slowly. That's right. You detained one of our agents, Special Agent Michael Cole. Without cause. With all due respect, Daniel began. The situation appeared suspicious at the time. He refused to identify himself properly until after I asked multiple times. Simmons's expression didn't change. We have the body cam footage. He complied immediately. You escalated. Daniel's chest burned. Sir, I was following procedure. No, Simmons said, leaning forward. You are following a prejudice. The words hit like a slap early echoing Michael's from the day before. Simmons continued. We're coordinating with internal affairs. There's an ongoing investigation into racial profiling within your department. Agent Cole was conducting a field assessment of several flagged officers. You, Officer Harkins, were one of them. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, Simmons said. That's the point. Reynolds shot Daniel a warning. Look, silent but deadly. Don't argue. Simmons stood. Effective immediately. You're on administrative leave. Pending investigation. Daniel's head spun. Wait, you can't. I can, Simmons interrupted. Voice eyes. And I just did. Reynolds spoke up quietly. Dan, turn in your badge and weapon. For a moment, Daniel just sat there. His whole career, 15 years, flashed through his head. The arrests, the commendations, the sacrifices. And now, this. Over one decision. One man. One assumption. He unclipped his badge, set it down. The weight of the metal seemed heavier than ever. He placed his sidearm next to it, his fingers trembling. Simmons picked up the items, studying Daniel for a long moment. You know, Harkins, he said, almost softly. Agent Cole didn't even want to press charges. He asked us to let you prove who you really are when nobody's watching. Daniel looked up, confused. What does that mean? Simmons turned to leave. You'll find out soon enough. After they left, the room fell silent. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Jesus! Dan! What the hell were you thinking? I thought he was! Daniel stopped. I don't know what I thought. Reynolds rubbed his temples. Look, I'm not saying you're a bad cop, but you made a bad call. And the Bureau's not playing around. Whatever this assessment is, it's way above our pay grade. Daniel left the precinct in silence. The world outside, suddenly, sharper, colder. That night, his house felt too quiet. He poured a drink, sat by the window, and stared at the empty street. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then, curiosity got the better of him. Hello! Evening, Officer Harkins. The voice was unmistakable, steady, confident, deep. Michael Cole. Daniel froze. Agent Cole? That's right, Michael said. Relax. I'm not calling to rub salt in the wound. Daniel didn't answer. I wanted to talk, Michael continued. Man to man. Daniel sighed. I don't think there's much left to say. There's always more to say, Michael replied. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. Same park. Why? Because this isn't over, Michael said simply. And because there's something you need to see? Then the line went dead. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. His mind churned with equal parts anger and curiosity. What could Michael possibly want? Another lecture. Some test of humility. He wasn't sure. But he went anyway. The next day, the park was empty again. Sunlight filtering through the trees like gold dust. Michael stood by the same bench, briefcase at his feet, hands folded. He looked the same, calm, unreadable. Agent Cole, Daniel said, walking up. Glad you came, Michael said, motioning to the bench. Sit! Daniel hesitated, then sat. You think I hate you? Michael said quietly. Daniel glanced at him. Wouldn't blame you if you did. Michael smiled faintly. I don't. Because I've been you. Daniel blinked. What are you talking about? Michael leaned back. 15 years ago, I was a rookie with the Bureau. I made a bad call on an undercover A man died because I assumed he was the suspect. He wasn't. He was an innocent bystander. Daniel frowned. So, you're saying? I'm saying, Michael interrupted gently. I know what it's like to believe your instincts are law, to think. Experience makes you infallible, but it doesn't. It blinds you. Daniel sat in silence, the weight of the words sinking in. Michael opened the briefcase, pulled out a thick folder. The Bureau didn't assign me to test you by accident. They've been monitoring departments across the country. Your precinct was flagged for repeated racial profiling complaints. Daniel you think we're all racists? No, Michael said firmly, but I think you stopped seeing people as people a long time ago. You see threats, categories, statistics, not faces. Daniel looked away. Michael flipped open the file. Inside were photos, reports cases Daniel had worked, notes, observations, even transcripts. You've had 22 stops involving black males in the last 6 months, Michael said. 80 ended without charges. 4 turned physical. None resulted in disciplinary review. Daniel swallowed hard. You've been watching me? We've been watching the pattern, Michael corrected. You're not the only one, but you are the one who's going to decide how this ends. Daniel frowned. How? What ends? Michael closed the file. Your careero! Your redemption! Silence! The word hung heavy between them. What are you offering me? Daniel asked slowly. A chance, Michael said. A chance to understand the system from the inside? To work with us? Daniel blinked. Work with the FBI? You can't be serious. I am, Michael said. But not as an agent, as a consultant on local bias reform. You'll work under a review, retrain, see the other side. Daniel shook his head. You're telling me I arrest you one day, and the next, you're offering me a job. Michael chuckled softly. Irony's funny that way. Daniel looked at him skeptically. Why me? Because, Michael said, his gaze intense. "You're exactly the kind of man who can change if he chooses to, and the kind of man who can help others do the same." Daniel was quiet for a long time. "And if I say no?" Michael's tone cooled. "Then you'll be part of a report that reshapes your department's future. You'll lose your badge permanently." Daniel exhaled slowly. "You're giving me a choice." "That's not really a choice." Michael smiled faintly. "Welcome to justice." They sat in silence, the breeze stirring the leaves. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel asked finally. "Why not just let me drown?" Michael looked away, eyes distant. "Because I've seen what drowning looks like, and because someone once pulled me out when I didn't deserve it." Daniel stared at him. For the first time, he saw not an adversary, but a man who understood pain, regret, and the long road to redemption. "All right," Daniel said finally. "What do you need me to do?" Michael closed the briefcase. "Meet me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Federal Building, downtown. Don't be late." As Michael walked away, Daniel sat alone, the echo of his words hanging in the air. For the first time in a long time, he felt something unexpected, hope mixed with fear. He didn't know it yet, but agreeing to that meeting would pull him into a deeper Web 1, where truth and power were about to collide in ways neither man could predict. The following morning, Daniel arrived at the Federal Building with a kind of uneasy dread that sits heavy in the gut. The lobby was marble and glass, cold and intimidating, buzzing with agents who didn't glance twice at him. He wasn't one of them, at least. Not yet. A receptionist directed him to the 10th floor, where Michael Cole was waiting in a conference room lined with files and screens. Michael greeted him with that same calm confidence, as though yesterday's tension had evaporated. "You showed up?" he said. "That's a start." Daniel shrugged. "Didn't seem like I had much of a choice." Michael smiled slightly. "There's always a choice. Whether you make the right one, that's on you." He motioned for Daniel to sit, then slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of officers' familiar faces. His colleagues. Some were men he'd served with for years, others from nearby precincts. "What is this?" Daniel asked. "Patterns," Michael said. "These officers have similar complaint histories. Excessive force, profiling, procedural misconduct. Most of the time, they walk away with a warning." Daniel frowned. "You're telling me every one of these people is corrupt?" "Not corrupt," Michael said. "Complacent. There's a difference. Corruption you can root out. Complacency spreads quietly, like rust." He tapped one file. "You knew Officer Keaton, didn't you?" Daniel stiffened. "Yeah." "Worked a couple shifts with him?" "Why?" Michael's tone darkened. 2 years ago, he planted narcotics during a routine stop. The Bureau has evidence. It was covered up by internal review." Daniel's stomach turned. That can't be right. Keaton's not that kind of guy." Michael finished softly. "That's what everyone said." He flipped another photo. "And yet, here we are." Michael leaned forward. "Harkins, what we're doing isn't just about you. It's about exposing a pattern that's been protected for too long. But if we're going to clean it up, we need someone who's lived in it. Someone the department trusts." Daniel blinked. "You want me to spy on my own?" "I want you to tell the truth," Michael said. "Start with yourself." Daniel didn't answer. His mind raced anger, guilt, fear, all tangling together. He'd thought of himself as a man of order, a cop who followed rules, not one of the bad ones. But the truth Michael was showing him didn't fit the story he'd told himself for 15 years. Over the next few weeks, Daniel worked under Michael's supervision in what they called bias and accountability reintegration. It sounded clinical, but in practice, it was brutal. He reviewed body cam footage from departments across the state stops that started with routine suspicion and ended with tragedy. He saw faces of men and women terrified, humiliated, hurt. Some he'd known by name. Others he could have easily mistaken for criminals once upon a time. He began to see patterns, he hadn't noticed before the way a tone could escalate a situation. The subtle assumptions baked into his own language. Every frame was a mirror he didn't want to look into. Michael didn't make it easy. Why'd the officer pull the gun? He'd ask. Why did the driver flinch? What did the officer say? That made it worse. And every time Daniel tried to justify its training instinct, Safety Michael would counter. No! That's fear! Fear masquerading as authority. Slowly, painfully, Daniel started to change. He began taking notes, studying interactions differently. He realized how many moments in his own career had been ruled by instinct instead of understanding. How many people he'd misjudged, not because they were dangerous, but because they didn't fit the picture in his head of who belonged where. Then came the first test. One afternoon, Michael called him into his office. We're going on a field assignment, he said. You're not ready for desk work anymore. Time to see if you've actually learned something. What kind of assignment? Daniel asked. Observation, Michael said. We're looking into a suspect to one of your old precinct's narcotics units. Word is, they've been cutting deals with a known trafficker named Darius Kent. Daniel stiffened. He knew that name. Kent? He's been in and out of custody for years. Always walks free. Exactly, Michael said. We think someone's keeping him that way. Someone local. Daniel frowned. And you want me to help expose it? Michael nodded. You know their habits, their routes, their methods. We'll do this quiet. You observe. You report. You don't interfere. So Daniel found himself back in a world that suddenly looked different. Same streets, same squad cars, but now he saw things he'd missed before. The way the new rookie tensed up around certain neighborhoods. The way officers justified unnecessary stops as preventive checks. He recognized his old self in them, and it unsettled him. The deeper they dug, the uglier it got. Darius Kent wasn't just some street hustler. He was an informant protected by certain officers in exchange for intel and cash. The narcotics unit was pocketing money, erasing evidence, and turning a blind eye to Kent's business. Michael suspected internal affairs knew, but buried it to protect reputations. One night, after hours of stakeout, Daniel finally broke the silence. You knew this ran deep before you brought me in, didn't you? Michael nodded. Of course. But it's one thing to have evidence. It's another to have a witness with credibility inside the department. Daniel stared out at the streetlights. So I'm your inside man? You're your own redemption, Michael corrected quietly. A week later, the operation reached boiling point. The narcotics unit arranged a meetup with Kent in a warehouse on the edge of town. Michael and Daniel were monitoring from a van nearby, audio feeds crackling through the static. They heard voices, Keaton's among them. Where's the drop? Darius. Keaton barked. Kent's voice was calm, lazy. Relax, man. It's on the way. You get your cut. Same as always. Not this time, another officer snapped. Too many eyes lately. Daniel and Michael exchanged a glance. They're panicking, Michael said. We might get them to flip. But then, something changed. A gun cocked? Raised voices? Panic? What the hell? Daniel stirred in, but Michael was already moving. Stay in the van, Michael ordered, drawing his weapon. Like hell, Daniel said, grabbing his vest. Those are my guys. They burst into the warehouse to find chaos. Keaton had Kent pinned against a crate, shouting. Another officer, Barnes, stood to the side, nervous finger twitching near his trigger. Kent's face was a mask of smug defiance. You're not walking away clean, Keaton? Kent spat. You cross me. I talk. You know, I've got dirt on all of you. Keaton turned, gun raised. You don't get to talk. Darius. Drop it. Michael's voice boomed through the space. FBI. Everyone froze. Keaton's eyes went wide. Michael Cole, he breathed. You son of a... Daniel stepped forward. Keaton put it down. Don't make it worse. Keaton laughed bitterly. You shouldn't even be here, Dan. You're one of us. Or did you switch sides already? Daniel's chest tightened. I'm trying to fix what's broken. Keaton sneered. You think you're better than us? You were just like me. I was wrong, Daniel said. Don't make the same mistake. Keaton hesitated just long enough for Barnes to panic. The younger cop shouted something incoherent, and a shot rang out. Time fracture. Kent dropped instantly, blood pooling beneath him. Barnes stood frozen, eyes wide, in horror. Keaton turned toward him, face pale. Michael moved fast, grabbing Barnes's arm and disarming him, barking orders into his radio. Daniel knelt beside Kent, checking for a pulse, but it was useless. Sirens filled the night. Backup arrived. Keaton and Barnes were arrested on the spot. Hours later, Daniel sat in a cold interrogation room, staring at his reflection in the glass. He'd given his statement, but the image of Kent collapsing replayed over and over. Michael entered quietly, dropping a file on the table. We got 'em, he said. Their accounts, the money, trailits, all there. This is going to crack open half the department. Daniel didn't look up. A man's dead. He was dirty, Michael said gently. He was still human, Daniel murmured. If we'd gone in earlier. You did what you had to, Michael said. Sometimes doing right means carrying the weight of what it costs. Daniel finally looked up. So what now? Michael studied him. Now, we finish this. But there's one thing you need to know. He opened another folder. Inside were photos not of the warehouse, but of Daniel himself. Surveillance shots, timestamps, even recordings of his conversations. Daniel frowned. What is this? Michael sighed. Insurance. The Bureau's been watching both sides. They wanted to make sure you weren't playing them. Daniel's stomach twisted. You set me up. I protected you, Michael said. If it looked like you were cooperating voluntarily, Internal Affairs would have buried the whole case. They needed to think you were compromised. Daniel stood, fury boiling. You used me. Michael didn't deny it. I guided you. There's a difference. Daniel paced, fists clenched. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to play God with people's lives. Michael's expression softened. You're right, but neither do you anymore. Daniel turned toward the door, then paused. You think you're the hero here, don't you? Michael shook his head. No. Heroes don't survive in this job. Just men trying not to lose what's left of their soul. Daniel left without another word. Outside, the night was heavy with rain. He stood under the awning, looking at the city lights reflected in the puddles. He wasn't sure who to trust anymore. Michael, the Bureau, or even himself. For years, he'd believed justice was a straight line. Now he saw it for what it really was. Maze of choices, mistakes, and gray. He didn't know it yet, but the final chapter of his story wasn't about the Bureau or the department. It was about what happens when the hunter becomes the witness and the truth finally turns on both.